You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. Talk about Louisiana, folks, where Democrats are blasting the decision by the Democratic governor there to sign an abortion bill there, where Louisiana became the 6th state to pass a ban on abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, which is usually at about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Now, one of the folks who supported this is Democratic Louisiana State Representative Katrina Jackson. She's been defending her state's new anti-abortion law, says she thinks the procedure is modern-day genocide. She joins us now from her office in Monroe, Louisiana, to explain. Representative Jackson, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm actually in Baton Rouge. We're still in session.
So first and foremost, why do you call this modern-day genocide?
The way I look at it is this. When I look first from my state's perspective, we make up about 30% of the population of Louisiana. Since 1973, we've been making up about 30% of the abortion population in Louisiana. Nationally, since 1973...
So when you say we, African Americans?
African Americans,
Got
yes.
it. Okay, go ahead.
And since 1973, since Roe versus Wade, over 19 million babies have been killed in the African American community through abortion. Now, when you look at those statistics and you compare them to other statistics, basically abortion kills more African Americans yearly than any other illness, crime, or violence, or anything else combined. The number one death of African Americans every year is abortion. And about 900 African American babies are killed every day. That's really something no one talks about. And we talk about Black voting power. We talk about making an impact in elections and how we are now becoming the minority of the minority in this country. But we never look at how many African American babies are killed in the womb and how that's decreasing our population and our voting power.
Well, let me ask you this question here. Louisiana has an extremely high infant mortality rate. What bills were passed by the legislature? What bills were led by you and others to address infant mortality in Louisiana?
Every year, Senator Barrow, myself, and others lead the way for infant mortality bills. We are focused right now more on the African American population. So we just added language to House Bill 1, which is our budget to deal with funding at LDH, our Department of Health, to deal with the infant mortality rate in African American women. We also pass a number of measures each year to deal with health care. Like, we are whole life Democrats. I know it's an anomaly when you hear that you're talking about a pro-life Democrat, but our Governor John Bell Edwards, myself, and other members of the caucus that are pro-life, we consider ourselves whole life. We pass bills every year. We don't say, okay, we're just against abortion.
No, but I'm trying to understand, though, because this is the issue that to me is critically important. Right. You say your whole life. Question: does Louisiana have the death penalty?
Yes, and we had a bill on the floor last week where the entire caucus, Black caucus, and most of the Democratic caucus supported the elimination of the death penalty.
And what happened to it?
I actually spoke on it.
And what happened to it?
So
answer this for me. And this is the thing that I ask whole lifers and pro-lifers all the time, that if they're actually about life, how can they support death penalty? How can they support, why are folks silent when Black folks are killed? I'm very curious.
Well, we're not silent. That's what I'm saying.
I'm very curious to know what were the Republicans in your state saying when Alton Sterling was killed. That was life.
I get it.
And that to me is, you're in Baton Rouge, it happened right there. That to me is one of the issues that I have when I hear folks who are pro-life, or you say whole life, but folks on the other side of the aisle are extremely silent about those issues.
Let me say this. Let me speak for first myself and other Democrats in Louisiana. We were not silent about that issue, nor were some of our Republicans. I chaired a Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives. We had continuous hearings about Alton Sterling's death, and we passed omnibus legislation, a package of 3 or 4 bills to deal with police brutality in this state the session immediately following that came out of those hearings. One thing that we did was our law enforcement in this state now has to take a certain amount of hours in race relations, We also started a statewide registry from those bills in response to Alton Sterling's case, where law enforcement now, all of their issues, disciplinary issues dealing with race relations and other excessive force, has to be reported to our state commissioning board. So, and we also in that legislation now make every chief of police and sheriff, every hiring agency for law enforcement check that database prior to hiring so that they will know not to hire that person. So there were listen, I was out front with Alton Sterling. There are a number of issues we've addressed through omnibus legislation to deal with Alton Sterling. So we were not silent. I think there's an assumption that we were silent. I think what didn't really make the national news was when those packages passed after having meeting after meeting with both Democrats and Republicans, and that was passed by bipartisan effort. Now, let me be clear. There are some Republicans in our state, and we fight with them all the time, that are pro-life, but we don't call them whole-life because they don't address those issues. And I do not deny that. But when I come into the Capitol every day, when other pro-life Democrats or whole-life Democrats come into the Capitol every day, we're here to fight for the whole life, and we're responsible for us.
So
and that's why. Go ahead.
So I'm reading the Louisiana Child Death Review report, where the national U.S. infant mortality rate was 5.9 deaths per 1,000 live births. Mm-hmm. Louisiana from 2004-2016, it was 7.9. It was literally 2 points higher than the national average. Right. So the question is, and again, what is life? What is life like for Black people, Black women in Louisiana, when you make the argument that there should be no abortions, but people make their own decisions for whatever their particular reason, and that's up to them. But when you look at the conditions in your state for folks who are born, and you look at, frankly, the failure of government to address those issues, and then you juxtapose that with this decision, that's leaving folks with a baffling look on their face.
Well, I think that, and with all due respect, because I do respect you, you're attempting to say that the legislature as a whole has failed, and I think that the majority vote has.
Yes, no, I'm saying that the reason I'm saying that, Representative Jackson, is because the legislature as a whole passed this bill. The governor signed it, but I am going to hold the legislature accountable because they are government. What I'm not going to do.
But if I could answer,
go ahead.
I believe that you should. But when you're talking to me and you're talking to whole life Democrats, we're responsible for what we advocate for. What I can tell you is that every year we advocate for money for HBCUs, we advocate for money for LDH. This governor who you're speaking of, Louisiana missed the first 3 years of Medicaid expansion. This governor came in and signed it by executive order. So we advocate for access to health care. We not only advocate for it, but he and others in the Democratic Party ensured that it happened here in Louisiana. We advocate against the death penalty. I want to finish this. We allocate money every year by our caucus's efforts to make sure that the health disparities in Louisiana are addressed. We also advocate and have passed legislation to deal with food deserts in our area, which means that whether or not people have healthy options in their area in Black communities.
But this is again, and this is what bothers me. What bothers me is when I listen to state representatives, state officials across the board, when they sort of make these arguments. You just talked about HBCU funding. Henry, go to my iPad, please. This is a piece from the Daily Advertiser. Headline says simply, more state funds are spent per inmate than college student. When people begin to assess Louisiana or assess other states, they begin to ask the question, wait a minute, folks talk about life, but if they spend more money on inmates than college students, if your infant mortality rate is at a high number, that raises questions. Let me ask you this, other questions here. Do you believe in exceptions for abortion, rape, or incest?
Let me answer your first question, and then I'll go to the second question. Your first question was regarding the funding from colleges and universities and prison and inmates. Number one, we've had our first sweeping criminal justice reform under this whole life Democratic governor and this whole life Democratic legislature. For the first time, Louisiana is seeing a significant decrease in its budget. That was the first thing in this term that we attacked, because we finally, although we didn't have the majority, we finally had a Democratic governor who would sign those bills into law. So we have addressed that. And if you look at the new numbers for Louisiana, we're finally seeing a decrease in the amount of money we spend on inmates.
Is it,
now,
real question. Let me ask you this just to clarify that point. Are you spending today more money on inmates than college students in Louisiana?
Yes, but I was getting ready to address the second part of it. And the second part of it is this. For 8 years, we were under a Republican governor who whole life Democrats fought every day of their life, where we saw a decrease in the amount of money we spent on, colleges and universities. Our state dollars decreased by 60% then on how much you could spend, how much we were spending on education per student. That wasn't us. And we fought it every day we came in here. So now Governor Edwards, who's a whole life Democrat, and those other whole life Democrats in our state have been moving the needle up on how much we spend on college students in our state. You're now seeing an upward trend on what we're spending. So listen, we've had 3.5 years to balance 8 years of failed policy under Governor Jindal. We fought it. Governor Edwards was in the legislature with me at the time, but we did not have the majority. Although we do not have the majority now, we have the advantage of having the only Democratic governor in the Deep South. So you're seeing a trend where the amount we spend on inmates per year, per inmate, is decreasing, and the amount we spend per student is decreasing.
The second part of my question was the exception. Do you support an exception for rape or incest?
No, my Christian values does not dictate me supporting an exception for rape or incest.
So you believe that if you have a daughter or a niece or a cousin, and she is raped by a family member, or she is raped by somebody else, and that young woman is 10, 12, 15, 18, what you're saying is she should be forced to carry that child?
I'm saying to you that my Christian values does not let me promote abortion at any level. I promote the morning after pill. I promote contraceptives. I also pass Aaron's law in this state, which allows... But
Representative Jackson, the heartbeat bill is 6 weeks. The reality is a person won't even know they're pregnant till after 6 weeks. And so what you're saying is that if you had a niece who was 14 or 15, and that niece was raped by a family member, or that niece was raped by somebody, a gang member, or somebody who was drunk, you would look that niece in the eye and you would say, you have to carry this baby to term.
If it's my niece, because I don't have children, I'm sure her mother would make that decision. But if she asked me, I would offer to adopt the child.
So you would offer to adopt the child, but you would say to that young woman, for the next 9 months of your life, you're going to carry this baby that was conceived by rape.
If my niece or anyone in my family had that to happen, as unfortunate as it is, and they were to ask me what I thought, I would give them my Christian-based opinion, is that God does not recognize an exception to abortion.
Even if it's rape?
I've read the Bible from cover to cover, and I've never seen an exception. And listen, I've had this discussion with pastors in my area, and we all say we wish there was an exception in the Bible. We wish, because my Christian faith drives this issue for me.
But does your Christian faith? You say your Christian faith drives this issue.
Yes.
But again, and this raises the question for me across the board: does the Christian faith drive this issue also when it comes to other public policy matters in Louisiana?
For me, yes. I believe that the poor will be with us always. And so I fight for indigent families. I fight for minimum wage. I fight for Medicaid expansion, criminal justice reform, the elimination of the death penalty. I fight for families to have a living wage, for the state to give them a hand up and not a hand out. I fight for families every day, and that's based on my Christian faith. I feel like we should help one another get to a point where we can all survive. We should teach man to fish. My Christian faith generally drives a lot of my policy. And I know that some, they don't understand this, but the same Christian faith that drives me in this issue drives me to fight for everything else the Democratic Party fights for.
All right, Representative Jackson, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
On our panel here, Kelly.
This is a lot because as a Christian, I see her point of view, but at the same time, God gave us free will. And at the end
that is biblical.
And that's very biblical. In fact, the entire Bible is based off of people's decision-making stemming from their own free will. So for a government to take that away based off of Christian values is not only hypocritical, it's unchristian. So let's start there. Secondly, regardless, your belief in your God shouldn't have anything to do with my decision with my body. Because this isn't about an unborn baby. This is about control. And when you asked her about the situation of rape or incest, and she's basically saying, I am willing, based off of my Christian belief, to put my niece or daughter or cousin through a trauma of 9 months, incubating my rapist kid, that's just sickening to me. Because if you're a Christian and we have laws on the books saying, basically giving you an out, giving you a grace to not have to go through that trauma, and you're still saying no, I'm really, really angry right now. And it's hard for me to articulate exactly everything that I want to say, but that's a start.
Jason.
So first of all, she said under no circumstances would she be in favor of an abortion. The first thing I would enter before even rape and incest is a non-viable pregnancy. You know, that's one reason to have an abortion. You see that the pregnancy is not viable. This child is not going to survive. That's one reason why you terminate a pregnancy. But yet she wants you to give birth to a child without a brain stem or anything else that will traumatize a family, traumatize a mother. The other thing that I would bring up is kind of piggybacking off of what you said. I looked it up. Louisiana, as of 2018, was the worst state in the nation for healthcare, according to Wallet Hub. 48th in cost and 49th in outcomes. So you want people to give birth to these children, and you actually are not doing a good enough job. I don't know how long she's been in office, and she wants to blame everything on Bobby Jindal, but your body is not doing the job that it needs to do in order to protect children who are living. And now you want people who maybe are not ready to have children to have children. The other thing that I found is that in education, it is second worst in the nation behind New Mexico. So, and that's higher education and K through 12. So again, you don't even have the structures in place to take care of children when they're here, but yet you want to go and force other people to have more children. It doesn't add up to me.
Malik, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian author. I'm the husband of an ordained minister, and I can tell you right now, I'm perfectly comfortable in my faith that if one of my 9 nieces was raped, there's no way in hell I would look my 9 nieces in the eye and say, according to my faith, you're going to carry the baby of a rapist.
Yeah, I was glad to actually listen to the representative because I had seen some commentary stories about it. You know, in this particular case, you know, my thing is that, you know, this is an example of where we have to allow each other to breathe. And when I say allow each other to breathe, you challenged her on it. And she gave you instance after instance after instance after instance where she was focusing on things that are germane to the black community, things that are a benefit to black and brown people. She said it. She clearly said those things. Where she goes off on the ledge for some people is her views on abortion. I get it. don't like her views on abortion. I get it. But look at the work she's doing. And I think it's unfair to really lump her into what the state is doing in the same way that I think it's unfair to lump a member of Congress in what other members of Congress are doing. She's talking about the work that her body is doing. She's talking about the work that this Whole Life Caucus, she's talking about it. She's not denying that she's not participating in these efforts to better the situation there for black people. She's not talking about, she's not concerned about the whole life. She did not say that at all. So we shouldn't put that on her, that just because it's a largely, Republican state, that because her state is Republican and they have not done the things that we feel as if that they should do, then that's somehow an indication of her conviction or her concern about
I'm
black
saying
and brown
priorities.
people.
One second, Kelly, go ahead.
But you talked about the priorities. She talked about every single priority.
Well, this
that
seems
she
to be
had.
a major
Hold on
priority
one
for
second,
her.
Kelly, go ahead.
The priorities that she listed failed in passing. Every single initiative that she was talking about did not pass her House.
And is that because the Democrats didn't support it, or is it because it's a largely
Honestly, it doesn't
state?
matter. What matters is the
But
fact
it does
that,
matter, though.
No, it
You
doesn't.
can't say it doesn't
No,
matter.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
So it's the Democrats' fault. Everything that's wrong
I'm
now.
not saying it's a Democrat's fault.
But if you're saying it's
But we're
the
not talking about
legislature.
whether.
But
whether-
we're talking about
priorities. Get those
She
things
told
done.
you her priorities.
Get those things done.
But you can't tell her that you do everything that we say you should do, but it's your fault if it doesn't pass, because that's what you're saying.
That's not what we're saying.
But it is what you're saying.
That's absolutely not.
You're holding her accountable.
No, what I am doing.
I'm holding her accountable. Absolutely.
I'm holding her accountable for both, because what just happened is she sided with the Republican Party in an archaic, asinine bill.
Okay.
In the same breath is supporting things that do matter. I understand that, but for you to say that we shouldn't hold her accountable for X, but hold her accountable. No, I'm holding her accountable for both.
You can hold her accountable. You can hold her accountable for everything, but she gave you a list of things that we talk about that we're concerned about. The only area where you disagree with her is abortion. So that shouldn't color over everything else she's done, because she has a position on abortion. There are people in my own family who are Christians, and they are adamantly against gay marriage.
Jason.
I can't dictate to them what their Christianity should
But they're
tell
also
them.
not representing an entire legislature.
But it doesn't matter.
Jason.
Though. It's still their Christian. They do it based on their Christian faith.
But there's also a separation of church and state.
But that's for you.
No, it's for the country.
But that's for you, though. That's your opinion. You're guided by that.
that's constitutional, Malik.
She said that she's guided by her Christian faith.
Oh.
That's what she said. That's what she said.
Okay, but
you
there's a
can't
separation
decide
of
that
church
for
and
her. You don't like it.
No, the
you
First
can't
Amendment
decide
decided that
She
for
said
her.
that all of the things that she's concerned about that we claim that we're concerned about, she said she's concerned about it because that's what her Christian faith dictates that she should be concerned about.
Jason.
That's being guided by your faith.
I think Malik, you are missing.
I'm not missing
No,
it. I just
Jason, make your
disagree with
point.
you.
Malik, hold on. Go.
Malik, calm down.
I got it. Go ahead.
You are missing the point. What we're saying is, if you want to make things happen for black people, this isn't the way to go about it. There are so many other priorities that will better life and make it so. One of the things about abortion that people miss is, if you want people to carry babies to term, if you want to get rid of abortion, make it so that there's less poverty. Make it so that there's better education.
She talked about that.
Make it better. And she's not getting it done.
Right.
She's not getting it done because she's not in control of the entire legislature.
Okay, we'll make excuses. But
the point
is,
now you're blaming her for
no,
it not
I'm
getting
not
done.
blaming her. I'm saying work harder on those issues.
Right.
Those are the important issues.
She is working on those issues.
And that will
She
get
said
rid of
she was.
abortion.
But she said that she was
will
working
get rid
on
of
those
abortion.
issues. She said it. She said that I am working on at least about eight or so issues.
So she worked
So
on
she
those
said it.
issues, but at the same time, she put the cart before the horse in passing that bill before
One bill.
When
because
those
that
versus
one
eight.
bill.
One
that
versus
one
eight.
bill dictates what happens with the 8 that didn't.
No, it doesn't.
We're not going anywhere.
One second.
Abortion doesn't dictate.
You're not even hearing us.
Here is the
You're not listening.
here is the fundamental problem that I have with these abortion bills that you have seen in Alabama, in Mississippi,
Missouri.
in Georgia, in all the different states, right here. It's very simple. Republicans are fraudulent in their arguments, because you cannot tell me you cannot tell me at all that you care about life when your actions on other issues of the living don't correspond with your intensity over a fetus. You can't tell me you care about life, yet you say nothing about black men shot and killed by cops. You can't tell me that you care about life when you have high infant mortality rates in Mississippi, in Louisiana, in Alabama, and you're not fixing the problem. You can't tell me you care about life when you oppose Head Start. You can't tell me you care about life when your education numbers are horrible. Here's the fundamental flaw with all of these folks, is that they want this massive debate about fetuses. And that's fine, if that's what your issue is. But you better deal with your policies after the child is born. Because see, the reason I pressed the state representative on that was because Louisiana, what are you going to do if all these kids are born? What are you going to do? And it's fine. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about health? In fact, while you're passing these bills, and this is the issue I have, Malik, while they're passing these bills, show me the prenatal care. Mm-hmm. Show me where these Republicans are literally saying, we want to deal with your prenatal care to ensure. We want to deal with the quality of your food. We want to deal with the air that you're breathing. We want to deal with the water that you have. Show me any of these Republicans and Democrats who have said anything about babies that have been born, stillborn in Flint because of the damn water. They are silent. And I cannot stand hypocrites and fraudulent individuals who say, I'm whole life, I'm pro-life. And we are literally seeing a place where the quality of the water has led to babies, yes, being aborted because of water, not because they went into a clinic. And that's my problem. And I dare say to people, to any of these folks who keep passing these bills, you don't really believe in life. You only care about this very issue. And they are silent when a brother is shot and killed. They are silent about the Central Park Five. They are silent about black men who have been on death row, who have been within hours of being put to death and then later found innocent. If you care about life, damn it, you better care about life from the womb to the grave.
I agree.
And then to sit here and say, I don't believe in exceptions for rape and incest, but then they believe in this exception if it's a cop. They believe in this exception if it's a Catholic priest. They believe in this exception over here if it's law enforcement. They believe in this exception if you made a mistake and you were wrongdoing, you went to prison. They believe in this exception depending upon the neighborhood and zip code you were born in. They believe in this It's amazing how there are exceptions. But then they dare say, no, there's no exception here. That's the fundamental problem.
One more point.
Last point real quick, 30 seconds.
If you don't want an abortion, do not get one. It's as simple as that. But as for me and my body, you need to leave me alone.
Well, we'll see what happens, of course, with these particular state laws and when they go to the Supreme Court, whether or not this Supreme Court will overturn Roe v. Wade. Still waiting to hear, though, all these plans in the South dealing with infant mortality. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, they're back. MarijuanaStock.org has another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign, you know they raised a lot of money in just a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Those initial investors now own shares of a publicly traded company. They're on fire, folks, and last time you may have missed out. You don't want to miss out this time. Now they have a new investment opportunity that is as good, if not even better, than the last. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. Now, for those who don't know, the hemp plant is the cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Now, until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill Congress passed, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S., is creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all of the plants. This makes for an incredible investment opportunity, and that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is very simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. You can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. You may not want to miss out on this one, folks. All you got to do to invest is go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. You can get in the game, and you should do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.